Our guest today is Dr. Deepa Verma with Synergistic Integrative Health. And Doctor, good to have you back with us. Thanks for coming back.
Thanks, Holly.
We're talking about CBD oil today, and you can walk into just about any health store, really anywhere these days, and you find CBD oil. What exactly is it? What's it used for?
CBD oil people use for a number of reasons, whether it's pain, inflammation, anxiety, insomnia. It's something that's available over the counter because hemp is legal in all the 50 states. So what I always tell people and explain to them is there's a differentiation between CBD hemp and CBD marijuana. So the terms are kind of, people use them interchangeably, but it all falls under the umbrella of cannabis. Cannabis is the plant, and then if you think about the two branches of it, it would be hemp and it would be marijuana. Hemp is classified as having less than 0.3% THC. THC is what makes marijuana or cannabis federally illegal. So you have to go by that classification, and that's what allows it to be legal.
Okay, so the CBD portion of this is, I believe it's the stalk of the hemp plant, isn't it? And it doesn't contain the THC that has that euphoric, get you high feeling.
Right.
So this is why you're seeing it over the counter, and it's become very prevalent. You can get it for just about anything when it comes to pain or skincare,
yeah.
even.
Yeah.
How do you know, though, that what you're getting is safe to use?
Most people don't know, and so when I tell my patients in my practice, whether it's vitamins, supplements, minerals, herbs, they have to be what we call physician regulated and pharmaceutical grade. So with hemp, there are certain guidelines, and they have a certificate of analysis, and that typically looks at the potency, what residual solvents are there, pesticides, the terpene profiling. You can ask for these certificates, and the company should be able to provide it for you. But the problem is, because there's so much out there, there's hundreds and thousands of companies, people don't know. And of course, price is going to always drive it. If I can get something for $25 and then something is $100, come on, what do you think? I mean, logically, someone's going to go for the cheaper.
Sure.
But it's not always safer. And now with the Farm Bill having been passed in December, this is allowing hemp to be cultivated broadly, to not have any limitations on its cultivation, on the transportation. And it also, the key here is it took hemp off the Schedule 1 classification list because it was federally legal as of 1937 after the Marijuana Tax Act, and in the 1970s we had the Controlled Substance Act, and that classified marijuana as being federally legal with other narcotics, LSD, heroin, then you have other schedules, like Schedule 2 is like cocaine and meth. So it goes down to 5 schedules, but marijuana was placed as Schedule 1. So this is allowing us
right up there
to
with heroin, which many people think is absolutely ridiculous.
It is, because the whole other segment we can get into is that we have the receptors in our body that are made to actually attach to the cannabis. It's called the endocannabinoid system. So because there's so much research going on now, and there's just so much hope for the future in treatment for patients with cancer, with pain, with inflammation, sleep, anxiety, everybody wants a piece of it. But I always advise my patients, my friends, my family, make sure what you're getting is safe for you, because we're in an opioid crisis right now. So everyone's going to look for alternatives, but you have to know what's behind it. Is it safe for you? You can cause more harm than good if you take these products.
And you talk about looking for that certificate, but really, realistically, unless you really take the time to educate yourself, I think most people, myself included, if you wanted to go in and buy something like that, it's going to be hard to know. Is it okay if I use this? What is that certificate exactly, and how do you know what you're looking at, I guess?
You have the lab that, and then you have the vendors basically, and then you have these points where they will analyze, and they will look, and they will give you a certificate and tell you the purity, the efficacy. Basically, the purity is going to be the most important thing. You want to make sure you take something that's not going to have toxins in it, that doesn't have pesticides in it, because if you're taking it for something like inflammation or cancer, and you're taking something that has some toxic ingredients in it, you're only fueling those processes. So you can ask these labs, they're third party, they're not related to them, and they have to have these certificates where it will show you how pure and efficacious these products are. So they're usually required to have it, and they should be able to produce it and show you. And if they don't, then I would be wary of that.
Okay, and generally speaking, I guess it's kind of like wine, the general rule of the more you pay, the better the product.
Yes.
And you have to be ready, I would assume, to see quite a price difference between something you shouldn't be taking, which you don't want to pay for anyway, and something that may just work for you.
Yeah, because there's a lot in the difference of dosages, the quality, the efficacy. So what I carry in my office are things that are just high purity, and the dosages are really, really high too, because typically, just like with prescriptions, you know, when you go over a certain dosage and you want to reach a certain point of efficacy, it's going to change, and that shouldn't be really just available to everybody, because nowadays we can buy everything online or just over the counter. So my patients, they'll say, wow, I really do feel a difference with this product versus this product. So you always want to make sure you talk to a knowledgeable practitioner. You want to make sure that you follow up, and you want to make sure that they're treating the right thing and that they're feeling the effects of it. That's going to be the key.
And going back to what you mentioned earlier, I've always found that fascinating, is that our bodies naturally have a receptor.
Yes.
Is it specifically a receptor for CBD, for THC, for, I mean, how does that work, and what does it really mean?
It's actually for everything. It's the whole cannabis plant. It's called the endocannabinoid system. And what's fascinating, it's so primitive, it was there before our brain developed. And that's why, you know, if you go back to India and China, we've been using this plant for therapeutic purposes for over 10,000 years. And what happens is when we consume it, the chemicals in there bind naturally to these receptors that give you that feeling where your anxiety lessens, where it reduces inflammation, where it helps you sleep. It's natural because it's binding to these receptors. So there's basically endocannabinoids, which we produce in our own body, and we actually need omega for that. So omega is very important. Omega is like a food, it's a food source thing, but it's a mood lifter. Then we have phytocannabinoids, which come from the plant itself, and then we have synthetic cannabinoids, which are basically pharmaceutical versions like Marinol or Epidiolex, which just came out on the market recently. So it's all exciting, but we actually produce it in the body, and the plant helps fuel it. And so that's why people feel amazing. And you know what the most amazing thing is? No one in the history of the world has ever died of an overdose for marijuana, because we don't have the receptors in the brainstem that allow for the suppression of respiration and heart rate. So, you know, all the negative things that we hear associated with it are because, you know, we associate it with college kids taking it, becoming stoned, maybe having the higher THC. CBD actually antagonizes the effects of THC. THC is known to cause paranoia, to cause the munchies. So when you're getting medical marijuana, which is what I can prescribe for my patients as well, you need a license for that. And remember, just because a farm bill has passed, that's on the federal level. Each state is still going to have their own law. We have to remember that. So every state's going to be different. So there's two different things we have to look at.
And you're absolutely right when you say as this market opens up, there are going to be people who in it who are strictly in it for the dollar amounts and not in it for wellness of patients.
It's going to be a billion-dollar industry in the next few years.
So just be wary about what you're buying. Good advice. And thanks for being with us again to talk about it.
Thank you.